Good evening, everybody. It is Sunday the 3rd of April. So as you can imagine, I'm absolutely thrilled it's a Sunday and back to work tomorrow. Boo. But we shall start the week with a couple of drams to hopefully get us in the right frame of mind. So I have gone through the samples that I managed to acquire, nick, at the Newcastle Whisky Festival, and very enjoyable they were too. And I'm going to do two now, which were given to me by my good friend Chris Cook. Actually, on the day of the Whisky Festival, he was kind enough to let me park my car in his drive so that we could get the train up from York, which saved me a pretty penny, I can tell you. So thank you for that, Chris. And he also gave me a couple of drams in addition to the huge amount that he'd already given me to start with when I met him that morning. So I'm going to swap the order I was going to do them, just thinking about, because one's peated and the other one's potentially not. But the one I was going to do first is also just been covered by a guy called Mike, who I've got to know through Facebook, and is a really, really nice guy. Really friendly, really outgoing, and I heartily recommend you subscribe to his YouTube channel. So if you just search YouTube for Maltman Mike, and I'll put the name up there so you know what to search for, it should be fairly obvious anyway. He has recently done a review of the whiskey that I will do tomorrow. So if you're viewing this and you've not seen my next one, then check his out first, subscribe to his videos. He's also just done a really, really good review, and also kind of paying respects to John McClellan, who recently died last weekend, who was at the Kilchoman distillery, and he's put up a really, really nice video and basically probably said everything that anybody would need to about him as a fantastic person in the whiskey industry. So please do check out Maltman Mike, and as always, check out Joe Ellis on his Whiskey Wednesday reviews as well. Those two guys, well worth checking out as well, if you're not already subscribed to Ralphie, which pretty much everybody seems to be. If you're watching Ralphie, you should be watching Joe, you should be watching Maltman Mike. I'm hoping you're watching this as well. Yes, there's competition out there for people doing whiskey videos, and obviously I've kind of thrown myself in there as well. I'm hoping that I'm doing something different enough to everybody else, and obviously trying to do it differently in every day rather than a week or once a month or everything like that. But do check out Maltman Mike. He's a really, really nice bloke, and well worth following. So that will leave that one for later. So we shall move on to this one, and you might be able to see the label. This was given to me by Chris Cook, and I looked at the label and thought, well, that's going to be interesting to pronounce. Yesterday I did Danica, probably pronounced Danica. A friend of Maltman Mike is Danish. He's called the Whiskey Viking, and when I put the video for Danica up on YouTube, he actually, and the Facebook group as well, Facebook page, he linked into his friend the Whiskey Viking and said, look, you're from Denmark, is Ben pronouncing these right? And no, I'm not pronouncing them right at all. So I have done some research, and I thought this might have been pronounced Aveen Jer. That was my guess, that was my first guess, but I've looked on YouTube, and apparently it's Aveen Jer-uck. And I've seen a video of somebody who was Scottish saying the word. So I think it's Aveen Jer-uck. Obviously, when you look at the name, that's how it's spelt. Aveen Jer-uck, clearly. Scottish Gaelic and all these spellings and things. They're just throwing letters up on a bit of paper and then going, oh yeah, but it's pronounced that way. They're just making it up. They're just making it difficult for everybody else. So anyway, I have this sample of Aveen Jer-uck, which is a pretty brand new distillery. I say pretty brand new. It was founded in 2008 by a guy called Mark Taburn. I nearly said Taylor. Mark Taburn. And it was the first distillery in the Outer Hebrides. So the distillery is here, and it's on the Isle of Lewis. Now, Lewis is pronounced how it's spelled, Lewis. But it's in a place called Uig, which is U-I-G. So it's Aveen Jer-uck in Uig, just letters thrown everywhere on the Isle of Lewis, which is pronounced how it's spelled. I don't get it. I don't understand it. They're just ridiculous. Anyway, so Mark Taburn, or Marco as he's known, set up the distillery with a view of essentially producing and bottling the whole shebang within the Outer Hebrides, and at this point in time, that's what they're doing. The barley sourced from the Outer Hebrides, they're distilling, they're maturing, they are bottling in the Outer Hebrides. So this particular one, so they did what a lot of new distilleries do, where they release a new make, a bit like the King's Barnes that we had a couple of weeks ago now, I think. And then they released this, so it's that, but I'll put a picture of what it looks like in a big bottle with quite a nice box as well, and released it as a 3-year-old, which I believe is matured in bourbon casks, but I could be wrong, probably are. But it was a 3-year-old that they released. Now what they did was they released it as a limited edition, and they sent them out to festivals basically to kind of get the word out there, and like, this is what we've got, and we've got miniatures and everything like that. But then they're holding on to the rest of it to mature it in casks until they can release it as a 10-year-old. So they're not going to be doing dribs and drabs of like a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old and using up some of their stock. It's a bit of a risk, but I think it's probably a good thing to do in terms of, right, here it is at 3 years old, this is what it is now, you know, see what you think, see what bits and pieces are in there, with a view of then hang on until we get to 10 years old, and then you can see what actually we really want our whiskey to be a representation of. So you might have noticed that before I took the cork out, there was a fair amount lost, because it's a cork in the top of here. It's not a screw cap. There is a cork in here with then not even a proper seal. It was just you might be able to hear it. It's quite a hard bit of plastic that was just around it. Not a fantastic seal. So I am a little bit concerned that the amount that's already been lost, technically, essentially through the cork, may have affected how it's going to taste. But we'll give it a chance, and hopefully it's not been too bad. It's released at 46%. And you can kind of tell that it's not filtered in any way, because there is quite a few bits and pieces. Now, some of it might be bits of cork, but it is pretty cloudy. So I'm fairly certain that it's not been filtered in any way, shape or form. And it's very, very pale as well. So, you know, it's only a 3-year-old. You would expect it to be very pale colour. So I'd be amazed if there was any type of colouring added to this whatsoever, but I seriously doubt it. So, ooh, there's an interesting floral element on this. And wow, there's like mint and jasmine and honeysuckle and lemon juice. Really, really fresh lemon and lime. Very, very citrusy. Very fragrant, very summery. Oh, that's a really, really nice nose. This reminds me of some of the whiskies that Tobias sent over, sort of the Belgian Ale and the Diedenacker, and not the Threeland was one of a kind, but there are elements of that in as well, just nowhere near as extreme. It's really lemony, really lemony. Wow, that's a good nose. I'm liking that. Interesting. There's a nuttiness to it. It's very, very light, and it's making me wonder whether I've just there's been too much lost out of that, because there really isn't initially a lot, almost to the point where it's actually quite weak, but then there is a citrusiness to it. There's a nuttiness as well, kind of like hazelnuts. Citrus is there, yeah, definite citrus, definite hazelnuts, a little bit of milk chocolate, but not particularly heavy. It's very light, and I fear it's too light, and I fear that too much is evaporated out of the bottle. If it's supposed to be like that though, it needs just a little bit more backbone, a little bit more depth, but it's a very, very delicate whiskey, and it's actually very pleasant indeed. It's light, it's fragrant, it's summery, it's fresh, it really zings. There's a lovely, lovely kind of citrus zestiness to it. If that's what it's supposed to taste like, it's very, very good indeed. And it's really got a character all of its own, particularly in Scotch. There's not many Scotches like this. If it's not, and it actually has, if too much has been evaporated out of that, and it's actually lost a bit of the depth that's in there, and there is a bit more richness to this and a bit more depth to this, it's even better, to be perfectly honest. I'd be really intrigued to try something from a bottle, you know, an unopened bottle, or a bottle that's been sealed properly, or something like that. I just wonder whether I've just too much has been evaporated out of this. And if that's the case, then Chris, it's your fault, because you gave it to me and there were loads out of it and it was unopened. So and it's probably a kind of fault of them packaging it like this, putting a cork in it and not actually sealing it properly. Having said that, even with that possible detriment of having had a fair bit evaporated out of the bottle, it's still really, really nice. It's a really good summer whiskey. I'm liking this a lot for its delicacy. There is a bit of creaminess to it as well. That on a summer's day would be absolutely fantastic. Really, really nice, that. So if anyone from Aveen Jer-uck is actually watching, or if anybody knows anybody from Aveen Jer-uck and wants to get them to watch this video, if they can get in touch with me and say, yes, it is supposed to be like that, it is that light and delicate, or it sounds like actually you've had one where it's too much is evaporated and there's more to it, I'd love to know. It's very, very good as it stands. If it does have a little bit more backbone to it, it will be even better. And in all honesty, that would make it fantastic, because that's very, very enjoyable to drink. So yeah, excellent, and could be even better. Good stuff, that. I'd love to see what the 10-year-old's like. Unfortunately, you need to wait till 2018, but actually that's not that far away, is it? It's only 2 years away. Yeah, I could probably hang on that long. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the 10-year-old now. I think that could be very, very good indeed. Intriguing. Right, so if you can find any of that, get your hands on it. It's definitely well worth getting. And I shall do a quick rinse out of everything, and I shall see you for the next one. Cheers.